Hi, my name is John Erickson, and I'm an assistant professor at Bentley University. I teach user experience design courses in Bentley's Masters in Human Factors in Information Design program. As a professional designer, I've designed award-winning products, helped take a startup to an acquisition, and served as an independent design consultant. As a researcher, I've been working with virtual reality for the past 10 years, and I run a new virtual and augmented reality lab at Bentley. Today we're going to talk about virtual reality, the future of VR, and how it will change certain industries and the workplace as we know it. In fact, VR is growing so much, it's expected to be a $150 billion industry by 2020. In order to understand VR and its impact, it's important for us to define what VR is. So let's dive right in. In your everyday life, you may be more familiar with augmented reality, or AR. At a basic level, AR overlays virtual or simulated objects on top of your traditional view of the real world. Think of the game Pokemon Go on your phone. When you hold up your phone, you can see the real environment as well as virtual objects on top of your view of a real-world location. That's AR. Another example of AR would be Snapchat or Instagram filters, which take an image of a real person's face and attach images to it using facial recognition. Okay then, so what is virtual reality or VR? You're most likely watching a screen right now to view this masterclass. VR systems are different than the way we traditionally consume information or content on a phone, TV, or computer. Instead, VR systems immerse you in a virtual or computer-generated world that you can interact with. So here's the key difference. Reality is enhanced in AR, but in VR, reality is replaced. To assist in the immersion, VR may also use a headset, which can effectively give you a first-person view of what it's like to be at another real-world location. You may have seen videos of people wearing a headset that covers their eyes. VR headsets are very different than traditional screens. They use two small displays to present slightly different images to each of your eyes. As a result, you feel as though you're looking at a three-dimensional world. To go along with a headset, you generally need either a computer, phone, or standalone VR headset to run VR applications. VR applications allow you to choose the world you'd like to interact with and immerse yourself in. Video game companies use VR technology to enhance the gaming experience, and the headsets combine a high level of immersion with precise motion tracking. Gamers can now experience what it's like to be inside a game, interacting, exploring, and even flying through these worlds from a first-person perspective. Users can also experience real-world locations across the globe using 360 video. To create a 360 video, special cameras are used to capture every view of a real-world scene. And the VR system combines these views to create an immersive experience. This allows you to look around freely in any direction to see every detail, just as though you were experiencing that location in real life. With this technology, you can see what it's like to stand beneath the Eiffel Tower in Paris or gaze up at the pyramids in Egypt. The future of VR is bright because major companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and Samsung are making huge investments in companies with this technology. As they say in the show Silicon Valley, just mention VR in a meeting and venture capitalists will hurl bricks of cash at you. Just last year, billions were invested into VR companies. As a result, the cost of high-quality VR systems is constantly dropping, and this is driving increasing adoption among businesses and consumers. It's important to keep in mind that VR isn't just a new technology like an Apple Watch. It's better to think of VR as an entirely new medium, just as television was at one point. And this means that VR provides entirely new ways for people to communicate, work, and interact with each other. Because VR is a new medium, it's difficult to predict exactly how people and businesses will use it. But very clear trends have emerged, and VR's impact has already gone well beyond video games. What we really want to focus on today is how this emerging technology will impact businesses and hopefully get you thinking about ways that your organization could employ virtual reality to stand out from the competition. Let's take a look at a couple of industries that have already adopted VR and how they will look to expand its use in the future. Architectural projects are extremely expensive, and there have been many cases of high-profile corporate and municipal building projects that have failed. According to a study funded by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the average American spends about 87% of their time indoors. So buildings have a profound impact on our lives and on our businesses. Companies and governments frequently spend millions of dollars on new buildings, only to find that people don't like them, can't effectively work inside of them, or even refuse to use them, ultimately wasting corporate and environmental resources. You've probably had the experience of getting lost, confused, or frustrated while you're trying to navigate through an airport, mall, or hospital. Why are so many of our buildings so hard to navigate and use? At Bentley, we use VR to investigate how people design and interact with buildings. In VR, you can experiment with the layout of a building before construction begins. This allows you to test whether people will actually like your new building, whether they'll be able to work effectively inside of it, or simply know how to find their way to the services that they need. One of the biggest ways that VR will help businesses and governments improve the design of the built environment is through something called participatory design. Before building a new hospital, airport, or new retail location, business owners can now use VR to experiment with different building layouts, where signs are placed, where entrances and exits are located, or where important services should be situated. And by having users put on a VR headset, businesses can base these decisions on direct feedback from the very people who will be inhabiting and using these buildings every day. Using VR to make solid business decisions will save money and create better experiences for users. One VR company called Prospect created a VR tool that allows architects to show clients what they plan to design by using a headset. This allows the client to instantly see what the architect is planning and designing without any chance for miscommunication. They created this product because architects struggled to show clients their design intent. And getting rid of the possibility for misunderstanding using VR saves time and resources. Another sector that uses virtual and augmented reality to improve their businesses are retail companies. Companies like IKEA and Wayfair are using AR to help customers understand what their furniture will look like in their home. If you're wondering how that new couch with a chaise is going to fit in your living room, you can use AR to position a virtual model of the couch in your living room and experiment with color and placement. The popularity of online shopping has forced brick-and-mortar retailers to identify new ways to engage with customers and attract them to their physical locations. One retailer in the United Kingdom who targets customers in Generation Z has made a significant investment in VR after research revealed that their primary audience is 80% more likely to visit a retail location that offers VR technology. In fact, they even used part of the retail space in their flagship location to build a slide that customers could go down attached to a VR gear that simulated a water slide through the city of London. Speaking of retail space, store owners can take advantage of VR as well for remodeling and renovations. Reorganizing a physical store is extremely expensive, but VR technology can be used to get feedback on a new store layout before the company commits to a costly redesign. One way this can be done is to set up a virtual layout and use VR technology to generate a heat map of areas that customers found intriguing and where they intended to spend more time. And while you may not think that apparel customers can utilize VR, some retailers are helping customers make smarter decisions when purchasing clothing. By using body scanning technology, shoppers can create avatars or virtual bodies and see what new clothes will look like before ordering them. Clothing retailers are getting into the VR engagement game as well. The shoe retailer Merrell set up a virtual hike along a crumbling rocky edge of a cliff for customers who were interested in their hiking boots. Whether the customer ultimately purchases the boots or not, you can guarantee that they're going to share the experience with friends and family. Another sector that is exploring how to capitalize on the benefits of VR is the healthcare industry. There's little doubt that VR is going to play a major role in improving healthcare. Major medical organizations are increasingly interested in improving how people interact with all aspects of the healthcare system, before, during, and after receiving care. This has led to a new patient experience movement. VR is being used to get a better understanding of how people experience all aspects of the care process, so that healthcare providers can increase access, improve healthcare outcomes, and mitigate risk. In one of my classes at Bentley, students come to the VR lab, put on a headset, and view their proposed designs for hospital exam rooms and waiting rooms in VR. VR is also being used to train medical students and surgeons to practice difficult procedures before they even enter the operating room. At Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, they're using VR to teach doctors in a way that textbooks and television screens just can't. Imagine a scenario where doctors can put on a VR headset to get a more detailed look at a patient's brain before surgery, identifying the location of a bulging blood vessel and where a device should be implanted to perform the repair. An added benefit is that patients can see the image, which helps them better understand their surgery and possibly reduce their anxiety before the procedure. VR can be used to prepare patients for potentially stressful hospital visits before they arrive. For example, kids can play video games that simulate what it'll be like when they go to the hospital to get an MRI. And it has even been used as a form of distraction for patients with painful conditions, such as burn victims. For example, researchers have experimented with having burn victims play an Ice World video game where they throw snowballs in VR to distract them from pain while their wounds are being dressed. While we've focused thus far on architecture, retail, and healthcare, these are not the only industries that will be shaped and impacted by the emergence of virtual reality. Let's briefly discuss a few others. Obviously, I believe in the power of education. One of the main advantages of VR is that it gives the user a very real sense of scale and that it can effectively transport someone to a remote location using 360 video. Rather than going on expensive or even impossible field trips, schools can transport students to distant locations. They can see what it's like to walk on the surface of Mars, visit the pyramids, or swim with blue whales. And in the coming years, as the cost of VR systems continues to decline, it's likely that we'll see a proliferation of educational games and more VR headsets in the classroom. Keeping young students engaged in the learning process can be a challenge at all levels. Because we tend to remember fun, interactive experiences that engage our senses and demand our active participation in learning, virtual reality offers unique possibilities for supplementing traditional styles of both teaching and learning. Another area where we could see a virtual reality explosion is sports. Sports play a large role in many people's lives, from entertainment to fitness. For those of you who are young parents, I'm sure a large percentage of your weekend is spent shuttling kids from one sporting event to another. As kids get older and start to specialize in a particular sport, we've seen parents spend thousands of dollars to find additional coaching and practice for their kids. Just about anything that you can practice in the real world can be practiced in a virtual world, and this is usually safer than training people in the real world. Some professional sport teams are already using VR to help their players learn the playbook and master drills that will improve their performance in live games. Let's talk about manufacturing. Despite what you hear in the news, manufacturing is not dead. It's changing. Many aspects of manufacturing are becoming automated and are being taken over by robots. However, humans often work in close collaboration with dangerous machines or in hazardous environments. VR is enabling companies to train employees before they enter these situations, improving their preparedness for day-to-day work and allowing them to be ready for emergency situations. The internet and mobile devices have already changed how we consume news and entertainment, and virtual reality is going to do the same. When you watch a movie, either at home or at a movie theater, you sit very far away from the screen, and the film presents a view of the world from a fixed perspective that you can't control yourself. When you watch a 360 video in VR, you feel as though you're actually a character inside the film, and you can look around the scene freely. Because of this, major news organizations such as the New York Times offer VR experiences through VR apps, giving you a reporter's eye view of current events. The time is coming when the viewer can be part of the story. Today we talked about how some industries are being impacted by VR. Depending on where you work, you may see different disruptions, but across all industries, there are 5 overarching ways that VR will affect business processes and decisions. First, virtual reality will grow a remote workforce. Over the past few years, Americans who spend time working remotely increased by 4%. This may be an attractive feature to employees, and VR will only amplify this trend by making it easier for employees to connect without being in the same room. Geographical location may not be a requirement anymore. Companies like Facebook are investing in this trend to create VR services for businesses that will allow remote workers to collaborate. Managers will need to think about this trend and figure out how work can be done remotely with the integration of VR and the management of their staff. Second, VR will decrease the cost of customer service, which will in turn save companies money. VR may allow customers to troubleshoot problems on their own without having to use the company as a resource. Companies may have to invest on the front end to create these VR resources for their customers, but in the long run, this could save a lot of money and time. Third, businesses will develop products faster. Companies like Boeing are using VR to create products at a quicker pace. Creating prototypes can be time-consuming, and VR can be used to speed up this process. Designers can instantly view an interactive version of a product with a VR headset and get buy-in much sooner, and rapid prototyping of products can increase profitability. Fourth, the ability to include the customer in business decisions. Having customers or clients weigh in on the design of products or new spaces will greatly increase the likelihood of those designs being successful, ultimately saving the company time and money in the long run. With future VR integration, businesses can involve customers in the design process and make faster and more informed decisions. VR can take some of the guesswork out of the design process. Fifth, businesses may be able to improve customer loyalty. VR experiences will allow customers to get to know products and services and aid in the buying process. Customers will be able to become active participants through the buying journey and be empowered in the process as they engage with your brand. Retailers like IKEA and Wayfair that provide interactive tools to customers to design their own space will find that their customers are more engaged and can participate in the process. It's an exciting time to be working with VR. It's already started to change the business world and many industries by allowing us to experience things before we make purchases or make important business decisions. I hope you found this information useful. If you're looking to explore this topic further, I'd encourage you to learn more about the graduate programs we offer at Bentley. The reaction to my VR classes has been extremely positive, and I hope to see you in class one day. Here's my contact information should you have any questions. Thanks for watching.